Hey guys, Jean-Claude here, and before we discuss this literal trash deck, I'd like to mention two things. One, I just had a brand new article coming out involving House Dis in Age of Ascension, all the brand new cards. So if you'd check that out, I'd appreciate that. I'll put the website up right about here. And also, if you're a patron for this month, we're going to be doing the giveaway for the two decks, most likely on July 4th, possibly July 5th of next week. So let's get to the trash deck. Why do I call this a trash deck? Well, as I was playing a Chainbound event, some guy comes up to the trash can next to us and throws this away. It was a 4-round event. The third round was just concluding, and he had gone 0-3, and he said he was done. He dropped from the tournament. And just to kind of show you something here, he had bent the entire deck, if you see the crease right there, prior to throwing it into the trash. I looked at him and I said, "Can I have that?" He reached into the trash and verified all the cards were there and gave it to me. Won't show the QR code. I don't even know if it's scanned. But yeah, this whole thing was completely bent. I had to go about and try to straighten it out quite a bit. There's still some that are pretty awful. But yeah, overall, I was able to straighten out quite a bit. Let's discuss this deck that this guy thought was good enough for the trash can. Now, I totally understand his thought process here. The deck is pretty low on amber generation. I put the amber in front of each house, so we'll kind of go through it real quick. Now, we won't discuss every single thing, but there's 2 amber, 5, 6. There's some amber control. So we're going to go through it kind of slow, not discuss everything here. It's not a deck opening today, just a trash deck. He probably was also pretty displeased with 3 Brobnar creatures. I would have been pretty upset if I had seen 3 Brobnar creatures and all these different ways that want to use the creatures. And, you know, that's not really something you expect to see in House Brobnar, but we'll go back through it. I think what he was most upset about, though, was in Dis. So let's talk about this, though. So you got some amber here. Not too bad, right? Those are some good cards. Unlocked Gateway. Yeah, okay. Bronze Camp, okay. A little bit of Stall. Anguish, yeah, that's a great card. Yurk. Oh, see, he was not happy with Yurk. This guy went on and on about how much he hated Yurk. He didn't like the fact that he had to actually discard a card. He wasn't able to play every card in his deck. Oh, God, and he had 2 of them. No wonder why he was so upset. Gosh, just a 3... Oh, 3 Yurks were in his deck. Man, I would be pissed, too, if I didn't like this effect. Oh, he had 4 Yurks. Okay, come on. Of course this is a trash deck. It needs to go into the trash, right? And an old Yurk. So, yeah, you know, he had 4 Yurks that was making him discard cards, which he was not happy about, and an old Yurk that would make him discard too. That was the end of his Dis. Let's go over the Mars real quick before we discuss a little bit more about that. There's only 2 cards that had Amber inside of Mars. Key Abduction and the Spike here. Mother Gun is pretty good. Sample collections, I find myself discarding quite a bit. I've actually played with this deck quite a few times now. I actually played it against a lot of different teammates. And this was the deck that determined if your deck was good enough to ever play again. Surprisingly, I won a lot of games with this deck. I'll tell you why. It's not good, but I'll tell you exactly how I was able to win. Exterminate isn't too good in this deck either because it destroys non-Mars creatures with lower power. And if you look at the Mars suite here, it's 2, 2, 2, 4, 2, 3. So most of the time you were lucky enough to be able to destroy a 3 or less, because that's all it can destroy, and then a 2 or less. So Exterminate was pretty much discard fodder as well. Along with the sample collections, just because if you get them early, they're no good. No sense holding on to them. I did like how Mother Gun here, thanks to Sky Booster Squadron, always helped to buff it up a little. And also having Mother Gun with Key Abduction was pretty good as well, because we had all these creatures. Sometimes you're able to return a decent amount of them, make your Mother Gun that much more powerful. And after you return them all, you're able to use the Spike to do 4 damage to your opponent's creature. So any creature that would survive that, you Mother Gunned away, then you could replay however many Mars creatures you had, whether it was 3 or 4. So the Mars isn't too bad, it has some synergy there. The Brobnar, it's not awful. I said, he was most upset, I would imagine, because I didn't get to actually talk to the guy too much, about the fact that War Grump is ready and fight with a neighboring giant. Well, there's only 2 giants in the whole deck. And Dromanot returning another friendly giant. Once again, there's only 1 other giant in the whole deck, okay? So it's pretty rough. But there's actually something really intriguing to me about this. Sound the horns. So if you already had 1 of these, you had a 50-50 chance of finding the other one with Sound the Horns. And I tell you what, this thing just... the whole deck just goes, right? You're just throwing the whole deck into your discard pile as you try to find the second one of these. But what's interesting is, all of these cards, you take any 2 of these, are pretty good together. Even the War Grumpus, he doesn't have an immediate effect, or at least you don't think, but there's a gauntlet command in here. I was able to at least use the War Grumpus to fight with it, kill a smaller creature, suddenly be able to use a Brammo again, or a Drummerknot, maybe even return it to heal up its damage. But obviously the best combo in here was getting these two together, which you had decent odds of. Once again, if you have one of these already, you had a 50-50 odds of hitting the other one with your Sound the Horns. This is constantly able to wipe boards. It's just really good. I love Brammo and Drummerknot. My second favorite simple Brobnar combo in the set, by far. Relentless Assault was actually pretty good as well. Once again, because being able to do Drummerknot over and over, maybe getting some of those effects, or just fighting with some of these Yerks is good enough just to control the opponent's board. So Amber Control in this deck, we had Pandemonium. Kind of go through that. Let's see here. Yeah, I think that was only one. Oh, yeah, okay. Then you had these also as well. Screech Bomb. So that's 4 so far. And I cannot recall if there was any Mars. I don't think there was. Oh, well, Mind Warper kind of. So, yeah, only 5 Amber Control in the deck, but for AOA, that's not too bad, really. Getting rid of 2, making the keys cost more, maybe even preventing them from forging a key. And this is an undetermined amount, but it can at least usually take an opponent off a key. So why am I discussing this deck at all? If it just is kind of that bad, it just has a little bit of synergies. Nothing too special about it. Well, this deck is actually okay simply because of these 5 cards right here. The cards the guy hated the absolute most. It drove him nuts. He hates Yerks. He hates discarding cards. He wants to play every card in his deck. This actually made the deck pretty good. How is that possible? How are Yerks making this deck okay? Well, I said it didn't have that much Amber. It didn't have that much Amber Control. But being able to discard a random card that maybe wasn't too big of a deal at some point in time, maybe a Tremor or a Flamethrower, right? Taking those sample collections and discarding them to it without having to call Mars. Maybe even sometimes just discarding any random Mars creature, right? Doesn't have to be out there. Anytime I was playing a Yerk, or anytime I played one of the 4 Yerks or an old Yerk, I was able to filter out cards that weren't necessarily that great. Sometimes you don't even want the Unlock Gateway, right? I'm able to filter them out and then get myself in a situation to where I'm drawing more Hecatombs, more not finished with use, more Pain Reactions, all these cards that have Amber, all these cards that have Amber Control. I was thinning the deck with things that just didn't matter quite as much. Maybe I didn't need Relentless Assault one time through. This deck cycles extremely fast because of those cards. So, yeah, it makes it where I am able to get those crazy Mother Gun, Spike, Key Abduction turns to actually happen because the deck can find these cards that much quicker. So, yeah, the deck, it's not great, but it does have an element that not many decks are able to execute really well, and it's all thanks to these Yerks. It is all this cycling. That's what makes this deck pretty good. If you have a deck that actually does things and has this many Yerks, you might have something special on your hands. So I just wanted to point that out to everyone. Just kind of a random thought. I said, you know what, I've been wanting to discuss this deck for a little bit. Kind of give my thoughts on the whole Yerk thing and how it can take kind of a mediocre deck and turn it into a decent performer. So, what's the moral of the story here? Obviously, you should send all of your crappy decks to the P.O. box I have in the description. It's the most apparent thing here, right? I mean, that's what you gotta do. No, but seriously, here's what it really means. It means that just because you think a deck is bad, you should probably maybe explore it a little bit more, find new things you can do with it. You might still find out the deck is bad, but you might be able to look at some cards in a new light, like Yerk, and apply that knowledge to future decks that you might open where maybe Yerk is really good. That's really all I wanted to make this video about today. Thank you guys very much for watching my videos, and I will see you next time.